finishing this face is going to be a matter of working on little pieces as I work my way through. If I was going to follow the full method of the artists that I was watching, I would continue building up more and more layers of these three colors. But I'm going to start moving into a little bit more intense using the burnt sienna in here as well. But I think what I want to do next is to get the eyes pretty much together. There's a couple parts of those eyes that are really important. One is where there's highlights, and this little light right on that side of that iris is going to be really important. This eye is really quite dark, but there's some highlight in there that's going to be important. So let me start. Well, I should start with this one so that I'm not accidentally touching as I work my way across through there. So we need to start with sort of a green blue, and I'm going to go into phthalo. And down in this lower container where you can't quite see it, I'm going to be mixing burnt sienna with a little bit of pan muck. And yeah, that needs to get more yellow in it to get it a real yellowy. There's a goldy, when you look really close into her eyes, there's a goldy green combination. And now take some of this burnt sienna and put it into the phthalo to get the blue-green of her eyes. Yeah, that looks pretty nice. And now I want to start with my lightest color. And is this brush still going to be a little bit big? Yeah, I'm going to pop down to one more size down. I'm going to darken this other eye as it gets going. So I'm going to just play with this to get a feeling for what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and paint that eye first, and then it will get darkened further. Let's start with this goldy color. Her iris is going to go dark, so I can not worry about that. And I'm going to start by painting this into her eye. And then we're going to drop some of that green right next to it. And it's going to come down right to there on her eye. Okay. Now that was maybe a little wetter than what I'm going to be able to deal with later. But since this, and you know, I'm going to just, let me go ahead and just drag this little bit of darkness into the side of her eye because it needs to. And there's a pinky tone that's down in here that then needs some burnt sienna added to it. Ick. Sometimes we do things we're not so sure about. I'm going to just leave that. Be careful not to touch him up into that iris. And now my other eye, let's do the same thing, but I'm going to add a little bit more burnt sienna into this mixture. And also I'm going to come in to my rag and dry it a little bit more. That was a little too wet. Yeah, that's a little drier. I like that better, but maybe it's a bit dark. So dampen my brush, dry it a little bit. And I can put it right in onto the iris because the iris is going to go black later. And there's a little bit of that over here. There's a little of it that's around the edge of her eye. Now I'm going to come into my other color. Once again, bring it to my rag to get a little extra water out of it. And let me go into the places that are going to be darkest first. I can always do a little bit of a lift, which I'll probably need to. I'm going to take a little more of this burnt sienna and drop it right back into that eye area just to get it to sort of push out into there. And remember, I'm going to be coming in and doing a dark, and now this has to come right to the edge of the iris, and it's lightest right in here, so let's lift a little bit to lighten that up. And when I go to put that black iris in there, it's going to change this a lot. Let that move out into there just a little bit more. And then I need to go even a little bit darker and burnt sienna. So it needs to be a little thicker. Let's come over and dry it here just a little bit. It's a little darker right here at the bottom. So this is still just slightly damp. It's a little darker right at the top. And just a tiny bit on the edge there. Okay, and now this eye, let's go ahead and come, now that it's dried up quite a bit, I'm going to come in with this darker green. And I have to save highlights. There's a highlight right over in there. There was a highlight right up in that area. Take it right over that pupil. When I get those black pupils in, it's going to totally change this. Now, as you can see, our balance of that is like totally screwed now because I now have the iris of the eye up to what it needs to be, but none of the rest of the eye is. So once that's dry, I'll come back and get the rest of the eye up to that point. If I'm very careful, I can come in and work. I'm going to be mixing a little bit of this burnt sienna into my peach, my pink, and add a little yellow as well. Yeah, I think that's going to be close, maybe a little bit more. And then it's going to go darker up in the top of that eyelid. But she has eyelashes that are coming up into here, so I need to find those and leave them. And then there's a little bit of skin on those eyes. Yeah, so this whole area. Oh, narrow. I'm going to add a little bit of blue to this to darken it at the top edge. Soften that just a little bit. Let that find that edge. This is going to come down into a point right here. And then this dark comes through these wrinkles. Her eyelashes are dark, so we are going to be mixing ultramarine blue with a little bit of our red mixture and maybe just a touch of burnt sienna. And those eyelashes start on the edge of the eye. And don't come that far up into there. And out, exit out of the eye just a little bit there. And then they're on this side of that skin. Her eye itself has a very light, I think this color might be just fine. A very lightly purplish tone. Just a little bit of brown into there. Again, this is going to come all the way down to there. Okay. Make sure it's light up at the top. There's a white area that should be dead white at the top of that, which I've now lost. The rag. The other end of this eye, it goes a very deep red-brown as it goes down into here. Gonna have to put some of that almost black into that corner. Helps define the edge of her lashes. Those lashes are right here. And then this has to soften on this end of it as it comes up to her eye. And is that dry enough yet? It is. All right, so let's get the black of the pupil in there. Ultramarine blue, burnt sienna. Get it nice and thick to get black. This one here can go black as well. Now, as we get this darker the way it should be, it's noticeable that we really needed to go a little bit darker up into this area around her eye. So I'm putting just a little bit of blue with a touch of pink in it. Oops, too much. The pink gets really strong really fast. Okay, adjust. And this is a little strong right here. A little strong, a little orange. Let me just lift that back off a little. And then I want to take that color down and put it, take some of that, more of that off of there. Put it in the lower part of her eye. And now a little bit of this blue again. Now down in here, it feels like it's turning slightly green. So I'm going to add a little yellow to that. And take a little yellow up in there too. Yeah. And what is that? Oh yeah, let's put a little bit of blue in on top of what I did here, because this is just a little too, oh, that's better. It's starting to look pretty good. This needs to go a little bit darker underneath her lid as it comes down through here. I'll have to come back in and do some lifting for those eyelashes. I think I've got that eye just about done. Now, some of this gray-brown, and maybe a little bit more burnt sienna into it. Just gentle, 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 not a big, those eyelid brows are not real strong, but they are definitely there. And come out too. And then let's put a little bit more yellow in this end of them. these beautiful little shifts of color. I'm loving these little shifts of color. Still keeping that feeling of those primary colors.
One little line. Let's see, this peachy orange color coming out of here. Oh yes, this needed that little peachy orange to come in here. Maybe this could use a little of it. Don't lift up too much, Margaret. This is fairly dark in here.
Part of what happened when I was doing the other part of it is that I came in and did just a little too much lift in the wrong places and got some strange things happening. Okay, that's feeling much better. Now the other eye, boy, it goes really dark, and it's part of that whole dark face thing. So do I do it all as part of that, or do I do it separately? Let's do one other thing over here, and that's the rest of her nostril. So it's going to be a reddish orange. Just so delicate, so delicate. Same red-brown comes off of her mouth, but it shifts into a little bit of a bluish tone as it comes off of there. Her lips go quite dark over here, and I lost most of them in my first rendition. So let's just go ahead and bring some of that back, and then when I do her skin tone, I'll paint over this up to right there. I'm going to need to work on the darkening of her face before I can really do more with that eye, because I need to balance it with everything else that I'm doing over there. At this point now, I can ignore the hair and just work on the face and then come back and put that hair in place. So I'm going to work with my medium brush. Maybe, well, I don't know, this one, it's like, how big of a brush do I want? I actually have to work a fairly big area, which was part of my problem before, but then I tried to do the hair and some other things. So I need to just concentrate on this side of the face. I've started to mix up, I'll mix some more burnt sienna in here. And yeah, we'll have those to add to it. Is that going to be the right colors? Okay, we'll try it. I think all of this is dry enough that I'm not going to run my hand into it. And when in doubt, have something else on top of there to make sure you don't get into it. All right, so her hair comes down and around. And, you know, I can just take this right up into the hair. It doesn't it's better if I do. But I do need to keep that one little curly Q out. And then let's quickly work this part of this and add just a wee tiny bit more rose into here. And I'm going to be working around that eye, so I need to be paying attention to what I've got to do there. And then this comes across. So this is a mixture of burnt sienna and my yellow, and I'm going to just take this off so I can see what the eye looks like. Yeah, it's going to come up and underneath of there. And that comes up and through there. Okay. I'm seeing a little bit of blue. Boy, just a little hint of blue right here. So let's just let there be a little bit of blue right there and bring that into the eyebrow. Don't want to get too much water in here. Now as it drops over this eyebrow, this gets much bluer in here. I want to paint just to that eyelid because there is a change there on that eyelid. And I'll come back and catch it later. But we need this blueness around her eyes and up into her eyebrow. There's a lighter area right in through here, so let's just sort of pick that out a little bit. That needs just a touch more red in it so that it's not, oops, too red. Go back and add some more blue in there. This is going pretty dark in this corner. I'm going to put some yellow in there too to sort of gray it away. Yeah. Okay. And I'm going to keep those lines so that I can see them. The edge of that eye starts merging here, and we can get paint right in onto that eye. I'll come back and crisp up that eye afterwards. I just wanted to get this feeling of this paint on here. And this is something that I probably shouldn't be coming back into here. Either that or I've got to work it all the way through there, because then I'm going to get brush marks. Okay. Now as we come down into this lower area, I'm going to need to add more yellow to my mixture. until we get further in here, and then it feels like it needs blue. So as she shifts over to this side, there's more blue that I'm seeing in that mixture. So just sort of do this gentle, come in and find the tops of these beads. This is very delicate. Underneath of her chin, there's some light that's going to come down. There's a crossover here and a little light there. Okay. Now I have to get a little more burnt sienna and rose on my brush. And not too much water, but enough water. And we're going to come all the way across, come underneath of this nose, go right into that nostril. It had to go darker anyway. That eye is nowhere near done. I've got quite a bit that I need to do there. Okay. So do we need to put a little bit of her dark hair in here to see what's going on right now? Some of this can come down in here. You know, I think one of the things that's easier about animals is that they don't have skin tone that you've got to worry about. They just have the fur. And if you can get the fur halfway decent, they look pretty good. Get their eyes and get their fur. But skin tone is such a tricky little game. And there's so many colors in here when we get looking at it. I'm going to need to put a little bit of this up in here. This is all a matter of balance. So if I don't put a little bit of this here, then that's going to look too dark. And if that looks too dark, then yeah. And then she could have just a wee touch more up in here. I'll have to come back in and get that other eyebrow in once that's sort of dry. Make sure that's soft. Okay. Let me do a little bit of her hair. Ultramarine blue, burnt sienna. Depends on the combination, whether she has brown hair or black hair. And she looks like dark brown hair to me. And if we need to, we could add some yellow to it. I think a little yellow wouldn't hurt. I'm going to put some new gamboge in it.
Okay. She has an ear. It's going to be visible.
Okay, let's see if this is dry enough that I can come in and work on this other eye. I think it is. So we can come in with this dark brown, maybe add just a little bit more burnt ultramarine blue to it to make it up almost black brown. So there's a line that builds right in here. It's very dark in this corner of the eye, and that needs to lean a little bit toward the red side. So let me add a little bit of and then I need to soften that out into her eye, and remembering that highlight, and then it's a little darker above that highlight. And now her eyelashes. Her eyelashes come way out into here. And maybe before we get too into the eyelashes, let me just get a little bit of this slightly purpley color and her fold of her skin right up here. And then let me soften the top of that. And be careful that I don't pick up too much of that other dark paint that I have in there. This back side of the eye is going to go quite a bit darker. Take it right up onto the eyeball. And this bluey purple, yeah, it's got to wrap right in there. Okay. And then that comes up a little bit closer to her eye than I had it. And that shouldn't be as light as what I have there, but it needs to lean a little toward the pinky side. So let me just put a little pinky purple in on top of that. That looks better. Take it with a little yellow. Yeah, that looks better. It's a peachy color. Bring that right in. This shouldn't be as light as it is here. This is darker in that corner. Dark right up out of this and into this corner. Comes up. Starting to look better, huh? And then let's get some more eyelashes put on. Okay, it's feeling like it's got nice light in there. And is her pupil big enough? Almost looks like that pupil should go just a tiny bit bigger to match the other one. So let's just see what we can do about adding a little more darkness to the edge of it and making it just a tiny bit bigger. Okay. I think I'm going to have to step away from this. It's not done, but it'll need a little bit more work. But at this point, I have to step away and really sort of see it from a distance to know whether or not it's right. I'm seeing one little thing here that this has to go a little darker and a little oranger, right? A little more orangey. Okay, I'm going to stop here. Okay, we can do one more wee thing while I've got these colors here. This shadow underneath here needs to match that. And as we discussed, it's really hard sometimes to get that same color again if you don't do it out of your pan right when you've been doing it. But you know, working with limited color like I do, it's easier because you've got less possibilities, and so it's easier to get the right thing going. And I'm going to soften this edge of it because that shadow softens right out. And her skin. And when I get doing the jacket, that's going to change things quite a bit. So this shadow in here is darker. So that brown can get used there. And there's a darkness at the top of her necklace that helps define her neck and her cheek. And that jacket is going to come through there. Okay, I need to stop. I need to stop. I know there's always one more thing that I see that it's like, oh yeah, I could do that. We can get the bottom of her ear here with a little bit of hair between that and the top of that pearl. And once I get the background in, then I can come back in and do some fine hair marks. But we need to stop at this point. I need to look at it from a distance, see how close I've gotten. I didn't like how the model look on her shadow side was, and so I dampened that area and lightly rubbed it with a rag. I'll do just a little tiny bit more for you here, but it looks much better, and I have to decide if I'm going to come back in and do another darker layer on top of there or not. Just sort of soften this just a little bit here, and there was something, oh, down in here there was a little roughness. You know, we were talking about wanting to have her skin look nice and smooth, and it wasn't happening. It was looking mottled and unhealthy. So just gently rubbing this with a rag, and then we're getting this much nicer looking. We can just a little tiny bit right there. And of course I have to decide if I'm going to come back in and do another layer of paint on that side, or if I'm going to leave it like this, where it has more side light coming into there. I don't know yet what I'm going to do, but we'll come to that road when I do the next part of the demo. And just soften just a little tiny bit up here on the forehead too. So just dampening that and then coming in with my rag and just lightly rubbing. And I think I need to stop before I do something that I don't like. But I like the eyes. I'm pretty happy with the nose. I think this mouth is working pretty well. It might need a little bit more work, but it's pretty close to being together. Because that mouth, you know, down in here, this can go a little bit darker. Okay, leave it alone, Margaret. Although there's one other little thing that'll finish these lips, and that's just a little tiny bit at the top of here with a yellow orange, and it comes down. Okay, this can come down into here just a wee tiny bit more. Okay, I think we have to leave it. I know we have to leave it. Why am I still fussing with it? Because that needed a little yellow. Those lips are not real pink. They're more of a peachy color. And don't let that be too strong right there. Almost purple when it comes down over that edge. This end of the mouth comes out and into a little darker. Just like this comes to a dark piece here, this comes to a dark piece back here. But it's narrow just before it hits that. So, Margaret, no, get out of there. You're going to do the zit game. You know what the zit game is. Something right in the middle. You're going to start picking on it until it looks like a picked zit. You got to get color back in there or else it's going to be too. Okay, put a little yellow in there.